Notice I've changed the shape of this a little bit. I've taken the adductors a little bit higher. So here's my pubic bone. And I've increased the placement of them. Instead of being low, I increased up about 1.5 inches. So highly recommend that you do the same. And now we need to create the Sartorius, which is going to add the next really nice level. I'm going to duplicate bicep femoris, rename this Sartorius, and go into shadow box, clear, perspective is off, transparency's on. I am, in this case, going to drag out a mask rectangle that has roughly the thickness that I'm looking for. But from a side view, I am definitely going to work to make that on the thinner side. Drop out a shadow box. Use the move brush. Transpose, move. I'm going to focus on getting one connector. So get the top connected first. And then I can drag this along the body. Solos off. And we can move this towards the back. Let's go right here. That's probably the easiest. Now, of course, my job's not done because the Sartorius needs to, one, go towards the inside, which is difficult without turning symmetry off. So I can turn it off, but you have to then mask one side and go smart resim. Try it again if it doesn't work. I've got enough undos. And it's going to leave these polygons. So if that happens, I'm undoing, then you just leave this. It's not worth the hassle. But I do need to bend this. I do need to build a twist into this before I start moving it around and getting it off axis, because this is going to be facing one direction at the top. So towards the top, our Sartorius is either facing straight or it's actually facing towards the outside. But then down here towards our knee, the Sartorius is facing an entirely different direction. So along the way, we have to do a course correction. So what we want to do now is try twist. Just going to see if this works. Now it's interesting. It's doing something. Let's try twist in Y. And it's definitely twisting. Can we keep symmetry on? Let's say twist. And then move these back in? No. So the other thing we can do is mask out half of this. Control, click and drag. Actually, we should just mask out a portion. And then switch to rotate and just start rotating. Okay, now with that done, come in with move elastic, and we're aiming to place the Sartorius in between the vastus medialis and the adductors and along the back of the knee to the tibial tuberosity. Tibial tuberosity here. let's just change its color. Well, it's not going to work in this case. Alright, so it's looking good there. Let's just switch this around though. We also need to make sure that as it wraps around, as we said before, it has to go to the back of the knee and then come back around. So I'm just making sure it does that. But it's also needs to be pulled towards the front. Let's turn transparency off. Huh? Not too shabby. Switch to the regular move, or actually it doesn't matter. Notice how I'm moving this towards the front of that pack I told you about. So the Sartorius is definitely going to be representing the forward part of that. There's something called the gracilis, which covers the rest. You can look that up. We're just going to work with the Sartorius right now. And our work is largely done at this point. There's some shaping that we can do with the adductors, because we don't really want this kind of thick line in there. What we really want with the adductors is a nice shapely line which sets off the vastus medialis. So we can select the adductors, move brush, and just move these guys in a bit. Give it a little bit more shapeliness to that leg, and then we can increase the vastus medialis if we want to. And then of course we need to revisit our sculpt and see what we want to change, what makes sense to change. So we might come in and say, well, I think it would help if we put that tensor fasciae latae a little bit more dominant. Maybe we can push in where the great trochanter is and get the rectus femoris a little bit more dominant. You know, you can just make notes like this. Let's get the vastus medialis up, knee, adductors, and semimembranosus and tendinosus. And then turn these guys off. Let's switch over to an easier to sculpt material. Trim dynamic. And I'm just going to round these things that we just did. Add a little fat under the patella. Shape it a touch with the trim dynamic. Add a little bit here for the vastus lateralis. And make sure to get the iliotibial band and the bicep femoris working correctly. These are offset with the fibularis, the tibialis, which we're going to look at a little later. Okay, we'll work on the lower leg a little bit later. There were some mistakes in there I could see. But you have to focus and prioritize. Okay, so we'll just keep working this. And come back when it's a little cleaner.